Okay, we are live on Facebook. Hello, Facebook people. I think we're on that camera right now, correct? Okay, excellent. Okay, so we didn't get out of chapter one last week, so we're going to finish off chapter one this week. I promise we'll finish chapter one and uh, and figure it out after that. So, before we begin, thanks for coming, and let me pray for you. Well, God, thank you for another opportunity to open your word and read your words. Thank you for writing them for us. Thank you for recording them, for having them for us so we can know you and therefore know how to interact with you and be right with you. So, God, as we read through Ezra, Nehemiah, I ask that, God, you would tell us what you want us to know. Because that's your purpose in writing it. You want us to know something. So, God, lead us in that this morning, or this afternoon. I ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen. It's 2 o'clock? I can't believe it's 2 o'clock. It doesn't feel like 2 o'clock. Probably because I haven't had lunch, so it can't be that late yet, I guess. But Margaret bought us lunch, so. All right, well, just a kind of a quick recap. We were talking about Ezra 1 through 4, the decree of Cyrus. And it just said that the decree was a result of God's sovereignty. It was his plan. And we read a number of verses in Jeremiah and Isaiah where both Isaiah and Jeremiah already prophesied that Cyrus was going to allow the exiles to go back home. Jeremiah particularly, or I think Isaiah, both of them use his name. Isaiah was the prophet or was an earlier prophet than Jeremiah. So they both prophesied that. And then we read the words that God stirred the heart of Cyrus, or moved the heart of Cyrus. and just talked a little bit about God moving the hearts of rulers and setting the course of nations. And of course, again, we read from Jeremiah and also Daniel chapter 2, in which Daniel is praying for God to move the heart of people and nations. So we just started talking a little bit about during this time, the written word is becoming more important in society. Most, if not all, ancient Near East cultures were oral cultures. They sat around the fire and they told the stories and they taught their kids and they heard grandma and grandpa tell of the things that God has done, and they learned all of those stories. And oral tradition with an oral society is actually more powerful than written traditions, because story is so powerful. So a lot of people would question some of the stories and say, well, it's just an oral tradition, so they probably got it wrong. Not in an oral society. We don't understand that ourselves because we're a written society. Everything is written. And although we like watching things, we watch movies, but that doesn't make us an oral society. We're terrible when it comes to that. You've all played the phone game, right? So Margaret starts something, and by the time it gets to me, it's like, is this what you said, Margaret? And she says, how did we get there? But in oral societies that function by communicating through words, speaking, that's very serious business. All of their contracts, so to speak, were oral contracts. They exchanged sandals, shook hands, pressed signet rings into wax, but it was all based on what they said. And this is why they had court and contracts were all they all took place in the public square because people were listening. And so you knew in an oral society that when you heard something, you heard it, right? You didn't get it wrong. You heard it because that was the contract. And so nobody could back out of an oral contract and say, well, it's not written down. I said this. No, there were 14 people who clearly heard you say that, and you know you said that. So it was actually a stronger, more forceful contract than the written contracts, because written stuff, we put the small print, all that kind of stuff, right? You can get away with stuff when you don't hear it and don't verbalize it, but you just write it down, sort of thing. 20 times during Ezra and Nehemiah will be referred, there'll be references to written documents, which just shows the shift is beginning. Interestingly enough, the Persian Empire has the least amount of material that still remains in history. I'm not sure why that is. More than likely because of the shift. It was just beginning that shift, and could have had something to do with Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was the one who made the world a written world. The Greeks, Alexander the Great was all about libraries, all about books, all about written documents. The world changed through Alexander the Great. So there's the shift away from words of the prophets that came down from God to the written words of God that the prophets now interpret and help people understand. And that's important to note as well. The role of an Old Testament prophet is really starting to decline. So much so that we really don't, we don't have the same kind of role of prophecy today that we did back then in the Old Testament times. Because the written word is becoming more important than the oral word. So the fourth thing that's happening here is the policy of Cyrus was to give conquered nations their places of worship and their gods back to them. Okay, so that's why Cyrus is so keen on saying, hey, you can repopulate your land. You can go back there. That's why Cyrus gave them back articles from the temple. Why Cyrus said, hey, I'll give you money from the treasury. Because Cyrus's policy, the policy of the Persians, was to seek the favor of the gods of other nations, their conquered nations. The Babylonians, Assyrians, their policy was to take people, rip them away from their homeland, put them somewhere else, so that there is no chance of them getting back together and rebelling. Whereas the Persians said, hey, we understand that if we have your favor, we will be much stronger than if we have your hatred, kind of thing. So there's something called the Cyrus Cylinder. It's a record of the official policy to re-inhabit the lands that were taken by the Babylonians. And in there, one of the phrases is, so that the gods of the nations would pray for the gods of Persia and the king for success and long life. So it's not necessarily that Cyrus believes or serves God, Jehovah God. It's just a matter of foreign policy. So Cyrus didn't wake up one day saying, hey, I want to serve the God of gods. That's not what's going on. Cyrus just said, it's important for all of these other gods around the realm to be sought after so that the gods of Persia will benefit and the king will benefit. So it's kind of like saying, I'm going to cover all my bases. If these are really gods, and those are really gods, and those are really gods, well, then I want all of them on my team. And so that's basically what he's saying to the Israelites. Hey, you set up your temple again, and you start worshiping your God, and you pray to your God to strengthen my gods so that I can be king longer, and Persia will will benefit. That's really what's going on. So that's where we got to. Now, verses 5 through 11. Then the family heads of Judah and Benjamin, and the priests and Levites, everyone whose heart God had moved, prepared to go up and build the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. All their neighbors assisted them with articles of silver and gold, with goods and livestock, and with valuable gifts, in addition to the freewill offerings. Moreover, King Cyrus brought out the articles belonging to the temple of the Lord, which Nebuchadnezzar had carried away from Jerusalem and had placed in the temple of his God. Cyrus, king of Persia, had them brought out by Mithredath, the treasurer, who counted them out to Sheshbazzar, the prince of Judah. This was the inventory. Gold dishes, 30. Silver dishes, 1,000. Silver pans, 29. Gold bowls, 30. Matching silver bowls, 410. Other articles, 1,000. This sounds like Thanksgiving at Jerry's place. Bring out all the gold and silver dishes for the family. In all, there were 5,400 articles of gold and silver. Sheshbazzar brought all these along with the exiles, along when the exiles came up from Babylon to Jerusalem. So one thing that I want you to notice right away is there's the same phrase that we saw back in verse 1, where the Lord moved the heart of Cyrus, the king, and now it says, everyone whose heart God had moved, all the rest of the people. So again, God is stirring people's hearts. God is in this thing. This happens because God is stirring. This is just another indication of God rules the nations, right? God, in Romans, it tells us that there is no authority on earth except that which God has put into place. So every single world ruler, every single state ruler or provincial ruler or civic ruler, everyone who has authority is given authority by God, which is hard to take sometimes, right? Because not all rulers follow God or care about God. In fact, many rulers hate God and don't want anything to do with them. But in the end, God is in charge of the nations, and God stirs people's hearts, and God stirs the hearts of rulers, both Cyrus in this instance and every other ruler. So I think it behooves us to understand that and remember that in the midst of our particular situation of people hating certain rulers, and they're rulers because God put them there. Whether we like them or not, or whether we like what they do or not, God put them there. And sometimes God puts rulers so that nations decline, so that he's moving nations around. Sometimes he needs nations to decline so people in those nations go, wait a minute, we need not to decline anymore. What's going to take us out of this? How about God? Right? So I think God does that. Obviously, he did it to Israel, the covenant with Israel, saying, hey, all you have to do is follow me, trust me, obey me. It's not a hard thing to do. And all I'm going to do is give you everything you need and protect you, and you'll have my presence, and I will be God to you. And somewhere along the line they said, no. That's a great offer, but no. Because we have other things we want to do, God. We have other interests. And how do we know for sure, God, that you're going to keep your word? Right? And you're chuckling because it's our experience, right? Right? It's hard sometimes. You hear God say certain things, and you know it's best, and you know he's right, and you know that he wouldn't do this or put you in this situation or challenge you with this unless it was for your good. But still, we say, oh, God, this doesn't feel that good. And I don't know if I want to go there. And God, I don't know. I think that I can probably manage my life pretty well. So let's get an understanding, God, that the things that I like, I'm going to follow you with. The things that I don't like, just let me be for a while. And this is the kind of thing that Israel did for a long while. And soon they were saying to God, we don't trust you even in the things we like, because we did it. Don't we do that? It's like God breaks into our world. He does something for us. We start walking away from him, and our memory is twisted around, and it's like, yeah, I did that. If it weren't for me taking this action, that never would have happened. That's not true. So I say all that just to say that God stirs our hearts, and he stirs nations. So we really need to be asking ourselves, what is God stirring? What is it? I mean, don't you wonder that in our own nation? Like, what's God stirring? What's he making? Yeah, they can't hear you at all, but Archie's saying, yeah, God wants us to choose. And that's always true. He wants us to choose him. Yeah. Yeah. It's not a choose me when you feel like it thing. Is there any comments about that? God stirring hearts and nations and rulers. I want to give you a chance to comment. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure he is. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is. It is part of his plan. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Although the Israelites needed a Nebuchadnezzar and not a Cyrus at first, right? Well, he did destroy the city. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, he did. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah. That's one of the difficult things for us, is to understand yeah, why that kind of stuff happens. And right. 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 It's interesting that if you trace the major missionary movements, they all started with persecution, all of them, right? The gospel started in Jerusalem, and it spread because in Jerusalem, there was a persecution of Christians, and they said, we got to get out of here. So they went to Samaria and Judea and the ends of the earth. If we took a course of the major ways in which the gospel's moved throughout the world, we'll see that where it's strong in one area, all of a sudden there's persecution, they move out. And it gets strong there, there's persecution, they move out. So it's very interesting. And I'd think that America, North America, is now a mission field for other countries coming in here. Which is a pretty curious thing, isn't it? I don't know what it means, but I think that's part of God's stirring. Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah. Painful to watch, painful to go through sometimes, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the persecution of Christ, yeah. The disciples, yeah. Yeah, they each went, at least traditionally, they each went to a different part of the world and were martyred there, yeah. Except for John. John maybe made it to 100, somewhere in that range, in Ephesus. But he was exiled for a while. Yeah. Yeah, it's, I don't know. Maybe I'm taking too many tangents here, but it's almost always our first response to want to stop persecution and ask God to start blessing. But is that always the right response? Like, I don't know. If persecution is part of his plan, I shouldn't be asking to stop it. Is it our responsibility to do something about it? With every persecution that we see, is it our responsibility? Okay. So our responsibility is to follow what God asks us to do. And it's not necessarily bailing people out of persecution. I'm just trying to challenge the way we think, because okay. Of a type. Well, well, yeah, I don't know. I think that's the wrong turn, though, because we are given gifts to promote the kingdom of God. So it's not about stopping persecution or stopping hunger or it's about building the kingdom of God. And I think, honestly, there are going to be some people who receive Christ in India who are going to receive persecution because of it. So I'm not actually stopping it. I might even be starting it. Yeah. So, yeah, right, right. Because our responsibility is not against something, but for the kingdom of God. And let God deal with the rest. Yeah, yeah. That's why I would say I don't think our responsibility is against persecution. I think it's for the kingdom of God. Yeah, I think it does. Yeah. Moving along. Look at verse 6. All their neighbors assisted them with articles of silver and gold, with goods and livestock and valuable gifts, in addition to all the free will offerings. Does that remind you of anything? What does it remind you of? Yeah, the Exodus. Yeah, exactly. The Israelites leave Egypt and they ask their neighbors for gold and silver and goods, and their neighbors say, take whatever you want. It's yours. Not quite the same here in Ezra, but all their neighbors assist them with gold and silver and goods and whatever they need. So I think that's interesting. I think that's a purposeful connection to saying this, in a sense, is the Exodus out of a different type of, the Exodus out of exile, out of bondage, into the promised land again. I think throughout Scripture we see that theme over and over again, right? The Exodus from Egypt, the Exodus from exile, the Exodus from the Romans, or the Exodus from sin, really. There's that theme that goes on there. And then Cyrus brings out the articles. So the articles from the temple, Nebuchadnezzar took them away because the articles became a symbol of God's presence. So if you took the articles away from the temple, you took God out of the temple, right? Now remember, that's Nebuchadnezzar's thinking, that's Cyrus's thinking. It's not necessarily correct thinking. But every nation had their gods, and they had the symbols of their gods and the way they worshiped their gods. And if you took those symbols and those articles away, then you're really taking away their ability to worship God. And then when you destroy their temple, well, then you're saying your God no longer exists. So Cyrus is returning these temple articles as a sign or symbol of God's presence, to say, take God back with you to Jerusalem and put him back in a temple. Build a temple and put him back there. That's kind of his mindset, right? It's like, obviously, God's not these articles, but he sees it that way. It's also perhaps a sign of God's willingness to come back to Jerusalem in some ways. As the Israelites look at it and they see, hey, we get these articles returned to us. Who does that? What king says, hey, all the plunder that was taken from you, I'm going to give it back to you. I don't need that in my treasury anymore. It's yours. That's definitely a sign to the Israelites that our God exists. Our God is still alive. Our God is still working. Our God wants to be back in Jerusalem in a temple with us. God is faithful. So let's go, kind of thing. So probably needs to be noted too that the very fact that they were in exile was also a sign of God's faithfulness and a sign of God's presence. Right? I mean, what did God promise? If you serve me, I will bless you. If you don't, I will curse you. God kept his promise. We're here because God promised we would be here if we took that action. God is faithful. God's presence is still here. We often think that if something goes wrong in life, or something's bad in life, or doesn't work out for us, God wasn't faithful. or something like that, right? Oh, well, God can't be in that because it didn't work out. Often it doesn't work out because God is in that. Because he's the one who moves nations. He's the one who moves the hearts of people. So he's not just about blessing us as we understand blessing. He is about leading us. He's about being faithful to us. He's about us learning faithfulness, the faithfulness of God when life doesn't look faithful. Yeah, because we are right. Right, we are being faithful to our promise to raise them to be good human beings in a sense. Yeah. 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 Other comments? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that I think that it's more evident in some parts of the country than others. I think some parts of the country are not as bad as we see on news. um, there's still parts of the country where youth group happens Wednesday nights, excuse me, and the schools make sure they do not have anything happening on Wednesday night to compete with youth group. Yeah, yeah, that still happens in Nebraska and that whole area. So we live in the Pacific Northwest, and those days are long gone. There aren't any games on Sunday morning, which is why we have Saturday night services. Oh. Yeah, we can only go to church Sunday morning. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because again, we are so limited in what we know, right? Today in the world, there are more Christians alive today in the world than have been alive in the history of the world. So that says something, right? I mean, all the revivals that are happening in countries around us, and I think there's revival that happens in America too, in certain spots. So on the one hand, we do know that there's coming a time when the world will end, and the world is getting worse, and there will be the Great Tribulation, and those who are against God are very much against God. So there's no hiding that so much as it used to be. But there is certainly a resurgence of Christianity in many parts of the world. The fact that people in Africa will still say, I am a disciple of Christ, and knowing in the next second they're going to be shot, I mean, that is amazing. What would happen if that, what would we do if that came here? Hard to say. So I think there are aspects of, yes, the world is not what it used to be, or America is not what it used to be, but I wouldn't say it's in hell in a handbasket just yet. Right? So, and that would be, I think if we took different generations, for instance, my niece, who's 9 or 10, they go to church. It's a wonderful place. Her friends are Christians. As far as she's concerned, the world is amazing. And God is very much at work. And she sees God all over the place because that's what she knows. So from her perspective, life is getting better. From her perspective, looking back, and maybe some of our signposts of, in schools we used to do that, and we used to do that, and we used to do that. So therefore, because we don't do it, we're terrible now. Maybe those aren't that's not the right rubric by which we judge these things. Because, I don't know, I think it goes in cycles. And I'm always encouraging myself to think that there are more people alive today who are believers than there ever has been in the whole history of the world. And that is huge. That's significant. And more will be. And more will be. Because that's Christ's heart. One day it will end. One day in the Great Tribulation, it will be both a wonderful thing and a hard, terrible thing to be a Christian. When the world is definitely against you and you can't buy anything because you don't have the mark and all of that kind of stuff. But we're not there yet. So... Right. Yep. Yep. Yes. Yes. Yep. I think so. I think so. I think Peter says it'll be like the days of Noah. So, and I think we'll get there. Yeah, it'll be like the days of Belshazzar, right? Who didn't care about God or anything, and handwritings on the wall. And boom, they were done. Cyrus attacks that night, and that's it. It's just hard for us to, with our limited scope of what we know and experience, it's hard for us to make blanket statements of it's getting better, it's getting worse. Some things are, some things aren't. And I don't, and maybe the bigger question is, what am I doing in my own personal life? Rather, what am I doing as salt and light to make at least this part of my influence better? And I think that's the bigger thing. I don't know. It goes back to, it's not good to say, that proverb that says it's not, or it's in Ecclesiastes. Oh, man. It's not good to say, why were the old days better than these? It's just not wise. Because when we do that, we say, God, you were better back there than you are today. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're going to comment? Go ahead, Kyle. Mhm. Right. Right. Mhm. 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 Yeah. Right. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Right. Right. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Right. Yeah. 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 I think there's cycles. I think, you know, everyone was pretty certain World War I was the end of the world. That's got to be the Great Tribulation. And it was World War II. I remember speaking to my relatives who fought in those wars, and yeah, they just thought, oh, the world's done. It can't get any worse than this, sort of thing. So, I I don't know. To me, I think that's focusing on the wrong things. Because how does the world get worse? How does the world get worse? Evil, okay. So, yeah, the work of Satan, the work of demons. How does the work of Satan and the work of demons increase? Maybe salt and light isn't being salt and light. Yeah. The strength of every nation is disciples of Christ. That's just that's just the way it is. I mean, our nation wouldn't say that. Our nation would say the problem with America is you Christians. The strength and vitality of a nation comes from disciples of Christ who are salt and light and serve God. And when we stop doing that, we should not and probably cannot complain because we've stopped doing that. Right? When churches just want to shut the doors, let's just do our own thing, the world is out there, it's terrible, but we're great in here, you're no longer a church. Right? You're a club hiding from bad stuff. It's almost cultish. So I think we have to realize that We as disciples of Christ take Christ wherever we go, and we're the fragrance of Christ. And 2 Corinthians 3 tells us we're the fragrance of Christ to those being saved, a sweet aroma, but to those who are rejecting Christ, we're the stench of death. That's just the way it is. And we can't be afraid to be one or the other. Right? So I think the strength of this nation is us, is every disciple of Christ deciding they are going to be salt and light and speak truth. That's what revives nations. Not the power of an army or government decisions to put prayer back in the schools. That's just not it. Right? It's the Holy Spirit. Wow. How do you make a church relevant to its geographical location? This. Only the Word of God changes lives. Only. Yeah. Yeah. Preaching, teaching, living, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, being the aroma of Christ. And it's the words of Christ. It's the truth of God. Churches change. Churches, the culture of churches is changed by the words of God. Has to start there. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Right. 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 Sure. Sure. Yeah. 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 Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. 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 There's, yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. We need that encouragement, that growth, that maturity. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. 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 Right. Right. Yeah, I guess I get a little nervous about what I call the cult of morality. So, when the morals of a country go down, we say, woe is us, because our morals are terrible. They used to be so much better. You used to get kicked out of class for chewing gum, and now which is true, but Jesus didn't die on the cross for morality. He didn't die for the cult of morality. He died for eternal destinies of people, to give them new life and life everlasting. So if our rubric is, look at the morals of our country, maybe you'd be better off in Iraq or in a religion that has high morals. Because it could be argued that Islam is higher morals than America right now, couldn't it? So what do you do with that? If it's the cult of morality, then we got a bit of a problem on our hands. So we have to remember that Christ died for forgiveness of sins to give us a new nature and eternal life, which will end up in more morality, but not our making of morality. You know, one of our, oh man, I'm just bugged by this. Hold on. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. Look at some of our rules of morality that we used to have. When I started going to the Bible college I went to, one of their rules was professors could not wear long beards. They had to be short, well trimmed. Why? Because someone thought that was more moral. It was more upright. If you had a scraggly beard, you were somehow less righteous. Huh? What about wearing ball caps? Is it more church or elsewhere? Is it more moral or less moral? Thank you so much. To wear a ball cap, scripturally? What do you think? Is there anything in Scripture that says if you wear your ball cap in church or in a building of somewhere, you are disobeying God? Okay. Okay. Why did women have to wear hats in church in some religions? Why do women, they had to wear skirts or dresses? But of course, they had to be a certain length. Otherwise, you were immoral. Biblical or not? Not necessarily. So, Christ is not a religion of morality. I'm going to be even more dangerous here. And if I get too dangerous, Dan, just turn me off, okay? But my concern with this Charlie Kirk movement is it's a movement of morality only. Where is Christ in this? Like, if his message was, you need to know Jesus and stand on the truth of Jesus, why are we getting Charlie Kirk hats and Charlie Kirk swag and not Jesus swag? Right? Like, why are we lauding an alternate halftime show because it's more moral? Okay, that's probably good, but shouldn't we have someone like Billy Graham preaching then? Okay. Mm-hmm. The Velvet Jesus, yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Mm-hmm. 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 Sure. Right. Yeah. 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 Well, I think it's a good thing that people are more willing to stand up and say there is right and there is wrong. I think that's a good thing. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a good thing to get quote unquote higher morals. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a good thing to say, hold on a second, there's some things that are just plain old wrong that we don't want to go in that direction, and I think that's a good thing. But we got to make sure that it's Christ-centered and not Charlie-centered or morality-centered, right? That, yeah, yeah. I hope people are coming to church, but mhm, mhm, yeah. I don't disagree with those outcomes. I'm just curious as to where this is going to go and what direction it takes. And does it get less Christ-centered as it goes? Well, yeah. I, yeah. I'm not saying what he did. I'm saying where we're going with it. Right. And I agree with that. I'm saying, where are we going with it? What are people using that for? That's, yeah. I'm not as thrilled as you are. Yeah. Political content is Christ-centered? Oh, okay. I almost came unglued. Yeah, well, that's a good thing. I mean, I don't know enough about it. I don't know everything there is to know. I only know what I can read. And like I say, I'm not opposed to that, but I'm curious to see where it's going. Yeah. Is it going to be used for political gain? You bet it is. Is it going to be used for financial gain? You bet it is. Is it going to be used for things that Christ doesn't want it to be used for? You bet it is. So I'm just saying I'm not rah-rahing this thing. What's that? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm just not I'm just not a fan, and I'm not going to be throwing my pom-poms around. I'm going to say, God, open my eyes to see what you're doing, and where is Christ in this? Right. And I would say every person who wears a Charlie Kirk hat, offer them a Jesus hat and see what they say. Oh no, I couldn't wear that one. Why not? Right? Hmm. It's God's word. It's the Bible. Yeah. I think it's yeah. 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 Let's keep it Christ-centered. Let's see what God has to say. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. There's some benefits. There's some good things. There's some revivals. There was a revival in churches after COVID. I mean, I'm not. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. God uses every event, but let's not laud alternate Super Bowl programs as a wonderful thing from God. Really? Don't watch the Super Bowl then. Solved. Like, if you don't like Bad Bunny, then don't watch it. Like if you want to make a difference, oh, anyway, I just wonder what we're doing, and why are this entertainer and that entertainer is going over to Charlie Kirk camp and they're doing this. Okay, great. Where's Jesus? That's what I want to know. Because my life is about him. And I will die for Jesus, but not for Charlie Kirk. Or for morality. Or for better government. Anyway. I'm on the precipice of danger. So, chapter 1. I don't even know where we're at anymore. Ezra, God is faithful to his words. He's acting in faith. They're in exile because he's faithful. They're coming out of exile because he's faithful. He always keeps his promises. His nature is to bless us and not curse us, even in exile, even when it seems we're in exile. His nature is to bless us. Our nature, or our response, is to obey. Our nature is to disobey, our old nature. And that always enacts the promises of God, because he wants us obedient. Right? And so when we're disobedient, why don't we expect God to go, Archie, some discipline? Why, God? I'm only disobeying. And he disciplines us because he wants us to know him better and wants us to obey him. Right. Yeah. 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 Right. Right. Well, we are told God disciplines us like a son disciplines a child. Yeah. Let me close with Lamentations, chapter 3. You're thinking, Lamentations? Is that even in the Bible? Right after Jeremiah. Jeremiah wrote Lamentations. I think if I lived Jeremiah's life, I'd lament a lot too. Lamentations 3:19 through 33. I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I well remember them, and my soul is downcast within me. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, and to the one who seeks him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. It is good for a man to bear the yoke while he is young. Let him sit alone in silence, for the Lord has laid it on him. Let him bury his face in the dust. There may yet be hope. That's the picture of prostrate on the ground. Let him offer his cheek to one who would strike him, and let him be filled with disgrace. For men are cast off by the Lord. For men are not cast off by the Lord forever. Though he brings grief, he will show compassion. So great is his unfailing love. For he does not willingly bring affliction or grief to the children of men. Isn't that a wonderful portion? He does not willingly bring grief to the children of men. That's never part of the plan that God started out with, that we would ever experience grief. What brings grief in our life? The sin. The saying, no, God. And then we find ourselves prostrate on the ground, saying, God, help. But he doesn't willingly bring affliction or grief to the children of men. Oh, I love that. So, Yeah, Lamentations 3:19 through 33. If you've never taken time to read through Lamentations, read through it slowly and over again. It's a small book, but it is packed with wonderful stuff. Man, Lamentations is wonderful. It's like Jeremiah knew something. It's kind of like Jeremiah's wisdom from what he's learned in his experience with God and his grief over what's happening in the world around him. Every generation experiences the grief of the world happening around us, right? We all do. I read a quote one time. I didn't know who it was from at the beginning, and which was the point. The quote was given us to read, and it was about, oh man, the youth are this, and they're that, and they're this, and I was like, yeah, that sounds about the youth today. And then I read Aristotle. Nothing is new under the sun, right? So yes, the world is falling apart, but it has been since the days it began. So. Wow. Huh. Hmm. Yep. Yep. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Those wretched drive-in movies, I'm telling you. Those buggies. Well, before we end, I have to apologize to you for what I'm about to say. You're like, don't say it then. So, I don't know when we're going to meet again for Bible study. Next Thursday, I have an appointment that I need to keep before I go to India. So we won't have Bible study next Thursday. Then I'll be in India for 3 Thursdays. And then the Thursday after that, the 27th, is Thanksgiving. So we might not meet again until December, and then, we might have 2 weeks in December, and then we won't meet till January, and I already have a trip scheduled in January, so we won't meet all January. So I apologize for you for that. I just don't know the best time for Bible study and how we can do it weekly. God will make it work. Yeah. So I like teaching Bible study. Thank you. I just feel bad when I can't do it consistently, and I hope you can forgive me for that. So I've thought, maybe when I'm in India, I'll do a Bible study online or something. I thought, oh, that's probably not a good idea. Anyway, what's that? Hard to, yeah. Well, yeah. The good interchanges are good. I think they're healthy. I think we as disciples of Christ need to learn to do that better because it's helpful, and I think it's a good thing to do. So we will finish Ezra and Nehemiah. We'll get some traction on this thing one day. Likely the end of February, beginning of March somewhere, I'm going to do a spiritual, we always do a spiritual conference, what do we call it, Brenda? Seminar, thank you. She's not in the seat and the desk anymore, but she still knows more than I do. So we do a spiritual seminar. It's going to be on how to interpret the Bible. So when I get a date for that, I'll let you know. It's I'm going to give you a bit of a watered down course for what I teach when I teach in seminaries. So I think you'll find it helpful. So that's the plan. Just wanted to let you know that because you're Bible study people, so you get to know the inside scoop. There's got to be some more benefit for being here besides M&Ms. Although that is a good benefit, I'm telling you. Okay, so any questions, thoughts, comments, regrets? We'll meet again in December. Yes, I am so sorry about that. I don't know. And I've been really toying with wanting to do Bible study in the evening. So, think through that, pray through that. I would love to get a green light, first from God, but to hear from you, to do this in the evening. The downfall of that is that some people don't like driving in the evening, but I think we can figure that out, right? We can make this happen because I just think a Wednesday evening, or youth is Wednesday, a Thursday evening or something like that would be helpful. But so there you go. Okay, Thursday. I got the thumbs up from my teammate, so his thumb means quite a bit to me. So when he gives thumbs up, we already have starting a road towards Thursday evening. Thank you, Dan. That might be in the docket coming up. Okay, I've talked way too much. Archie, are you sticking around for winter? Good. And I'm saying good because that means you had a good doctor visit. Amen to that. Good. You know what, Archie? We're going to do a Bible study at your place. I'm coming to visit you, and you and I will get online, and we're going to do a Bible study. Okay. We'll just sit and discuss Ezra and Nehemiah. All right. Okay, cool. Tuesday mornings at 9 o'clock at Archie's house. There you go. We could do that. Oh, you do that already? Oh, okay, well. Okay, anyway. Let me pray. God, thank you. Thank you for guiding us and just for different voices that make us think, that make us search your word, that make us come to you and ask, so God, what about that? God, I pray that you would help us to be people whose spiritual eyes are open to the world around us and what's happening. And that, God, we wouldn't be just caught along, but we would be more like Elisha, who says to his servant, or says to God about his servant, open his eyes so that he can see. And then he sees the angels, the army of God. Father God, I ask that you would do that for us, that you would open our spiritual eyes, that we would be effective in proclaiming your words, that we would be powerful in proclaiming your words to those around us, and we would be stars that shine, that shine like the stars, people that shine like the stars in the heaven, that we would be the fragrance, a sweet-smelling aroma to those who are receiving you, yet to those who are rejecting you, we would be the stench of death. Not because we want to be that to them, but because you are that. So be that in us, Jesus. Use us for this community, for this state, for this country, for this world. Whatever your influence wants to be with us, God, do it. And help us to be your ambassadors. We ask in your name, Jesus. Amen.